Mugi ni mutare leu tabarĩra ya taũkĩrwo nĩ ĩrĩkĩtie gũkinya haku nja. Rĩu tũnyamũ twĩ muoyo nĩ ũkĩte nĩ ta andũ akwe ũtaũkĩrwo makĩria ũhoro wĩgiĩ mĩrimũ therũ na ciũmbe nini iria itonekaga na maitho nĩcio cells and microbes na rũthiomi rwa Gĩkũyũ ũtaũkwo na njĩra nyandandũku. Nyitanagĩra na mũtaramu Grace Gĩbũi oro mũthenya wa Saturday agĩgũtirithia kũmenya morutani maingĩ megiĩ therũ, mĩrimũ na njĩra ndikĩru. Kũhoro makĩria kana kĩũria wĩnakĩo no ũtwarĩrie kũhetũkĩra kũrĩa kwa Ũgĩ Media Facebook page ona kana Facebook page ya tũnyamũ twĩ muoyo. Ndũkahatũkwo ũkothome makĩria no taũkĩrwo kũna.
Hi guys, hello. Hopefully you can hear me. Welcome to today's episode of TAУKIRWO. So today I'm on my own. The team is not able to be with us. As you've noticed, our Saturday lesson has become English and Kiswahili together. But today we're not going to be able to do that, but we're hoping that towards the end of the next two episodes as we close out the year, we're hoping we can include the rest of the team. But for today, it's just me. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about epilepsy specifically. So we're going to be answering an audience question. But before we start, I have some basic housekeeping that I'd like to talk through. Let me pull that up. Okay, so thing number one is this December, we are going to be, or sorry, December 18th. We are in December right now. So this Wednesday, I believe the 18th is a Wednesday, we're going to be having our like holiday party and appreciation party. So it's going to be from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. So right now, although I know now it's like 4:15, but yeah, I'm running late, but it's going to be 4 p.m. to like 4:30 or 4 to 5 Eastern time. Our goals are twofold. So the first thing is we wanted to appreciate the people that have been supporting us and that have been listening to us. And so we decided to gift our top 10 followers. We gifted y'all. And so we want to appreciate you. So this tea, this chai, this oshoro session is to appreciate you guys also. And to thank you for being with us, because we do not take it for granted that you guys are here and that you listen to our content and that you leave us comments. We don't take that for granted, and we are really, really grateful. So we want to celebrate you guys. And then the second reason, we want to just kind of chit chat with you guys and listen and find out from you what you think worked this year, what you think didn't work. We've said before here that this platform is for all of us who are interested in learning about cells and microbes and basic biology. And so we want to make sure that your voices are heard, because obviously I run this along with the Tunyamotwe Moyo team that comes from Oge Media. So that means that there are four of us that are usually like putting this together. But we always want to include your voice. So far, we've included you guys by talking about the topics that you suggest for us. I think since September, all of our topics have been topics that you have either emailed or commented about. But we also want to make sure we include you guys now for planning for next year. So that's what we want to hear from you guys about. And if you guys have any questions about any of us, we are hoping that you will come and you can ask them. So it's going to be on the Facebook page. So just hop on at 4 p.m. Kenyan time on December 18th, and feel free to ask us any questions, give us any feedback, and just let us know maybe what the Tunyamotwe Moyo platform has taught you, or what you liked most about it, what you didn't like. We are very open to your feedback and to your perspective. And then the other item is that I know that airtime is expensive. Of course, I understand that, like, if you're watching this comment, like if you're watching this content, you're obviously spending, resources on airtime, and we appreciate that. And so to appreciate you guys, we are holding a raffle. So for 20 people, we are gifting you all 250 shillings, so that you can buy airtime to come and hang out with us. Because we got several comments where people said that about one episode of our show is about 250 shillings. So we are gifting 20 people with 250 shillings to purchase airtime. So that raffle happens on Tuesday. So please, oh, hi, Paulo. Thank you for stopping by. So on Tuesday, we're going to have this raffle. So please hop on to OGE Media's platform on Tuesday, the 17th. I'm pretty sure these dates are correct. I hope I'm not misleading you. Yes, so Tuesday is the 17th. So on Tuesday, the 17th, please go to OGE Media platform. Kimaniwa Emma, who owns and runs that platform, he will be having a raffle for airtime so that you can come to our end of the year party. So just hop onto there if you'd like support with airtime or if you'd like to interact with him on Tuesday. So hop on to there. So hopefully, I think that's honestly, I think that's the extent of the housekeeping things I had about that. I hope to see you there. And then let's see, what else do we have to say? Okay, so now we start our lesson. So if anyone's new here, this platform is called Tunyamutwe Moya, which is little living organisms in Kikuyu, or that's a concept that we hope to communicate. On this platform, typically we ask the question, Neke na Neke, what and why? So Neke is in Kikuyu, but I mean, basically the concept is what and why. And so we ask this about multiple diseases, multiple scenarios. And typically what happens is you guys, you send us an inquiry or a question, and then we answer the question, Nike na Nike, what and why about whatever the concept is. And I'm really, really proud that this year we have actually answered so many questions and we've produced quite a bit of content, and I think it's been a really, really awesome learning opportunity for us. So again, so here are some cells. We talk about Nike na Nike, about biological cells. I always want to show you guys some images of biological cells. So these are cells that you look at under a microscope. And so I think if you've been here on this platform, you've seen a lot of cell pictures. And so, okay, so back to the topic. So if we do our 2024 in review, we've talked about so many things here this year. We started with a discussion about GMO mosquitoes. Then we talked about antimicrobial resistance. I'm sure if you've spent any time kind of learning about bacteria, one of the things that you run into is this idea of antibiotic resistance. Really, is what it is. That's a typo. It should say antibiotic resistance. So we've talked about antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance. I guess they really mean similar things. But basically, these microbes develop resistance against treatment that is used to deal with them. And so we've talked about that. We talked about endometriosis. Again, the question here is the what and the why. We've talked about what is endometriosis, why does it happen. We've talked about blood clots. We've talked about, and also I should also add that sometimes there is not a clear why. So for example, endometriosis there is no very well defined cure. So what typically happens with endometriosis specifically is usually people are given support to deal with specific symptoms that they're dealing with, but there's no one cure and there's no one cause. So even when I'm talking about the what and the why, sometimes the why it's not very well known, but then we talk about what is known. Hopefully I needed to clarify that. Okay, so then we also have talked about blood clots. We've talked about religion and science. Can both of them exist? We've talked about albinism. We've talked about mpox. This was around the time we were hearing a lot about the mpox vaccine. We've talked about depression. We've talked about mother tongue languages and science. We've talked about clots and wound healing specifically. We talked about cancer. What and why about cancer. We talked about meningitis. We talked about typhoid and cholera diseases. They are two different diseases. We kind of talked about them both. We discussed who saw cells for the first time. We talked about blood groups. What is a blood group? What defines a blood group? We talked about ulcers. What are ulcers? We talked about alcohol. What type of cells are impacted by alcohol consumption? We talked about anger. What is anger? How to deal with anger? What are some really great ways to manage anger? Paulo, leo uko peke yako? Yeah, niko peke yangu leo. Lakini team itarudi next time. Okay, so we talked about ulcers, or actually, sorry, Paulo, I believe they're also going to be here on Thursday. So I think for the Thursday Kikuyu lesson, the team will be here. And then next Saturday's lesson, the whole team will be together. All of us will be together. Okay, so we talked about blood groups, we talked about ulcers, alcohol, the cells that are impacted in alcohol. We talked about anger. And then last week we talked about STIs, sexually transmitted infections. We talked about what and why. Then we also talked about these cow vaccines. So if you live in Kenya, you've probably been hearing a lot about these vaccines that are supposed to be administered to cattle, goats, sheep in January of 2025. There have been a lot of questions about what, why. So we decided to make a short lesson about the what and the why. I should add there that I think some of the resistance related to these cow vaccines is because there's like a lot of mistrust and issues that people are having with current administration. There has been a lot of conversation and dialogue. And so I recognize that it's not just about knowledge, it's also about trust, and it's also about the relationship that kind of exists between the leaders and their constituents. So, of course, it's not so simple. It's not just about knowledge, but I do realize that there's a small piece that is about knowledge, and so that's what we figured that we could offer. Of course, it's not a solution. It is very far from a solution, but it is just a small piece towards like trying to help. So in the larger context of the issues, of course, we have no control or we have no say really, because we are just a small teaching platform. But for those people that might want some more clarity on some of the technical biological details, that's what we offer. We do not try to fix any other larger context, because that's not something that we can do, right? That's not for us, that's not in our control. But for what we did is we just provided some facts, and we also decided to read up about methanogens and some of the concerns that people have. So if you guys have been hearing the discussion about these vaccines, there's some people that are saying that the vaccine is not indeed for an infectious disease, that it's to try and deal with these methane producers that are part of this climate change resolution. And so we decided to say, okay, we don't know what is going on necessarily with the vaccination program, but we can talk about what is foot and mouth disease, what is vaccines in general. We can talk about what are methanogens, what are methanogenic vaccines. So we just decided to have a conversation again about the what and the why, without the larger context. So we don't really address the larger issues. We just address the basic facts, which are just a small piece of the puzzle, and we accept that that is true. We also talked about why we eat fruit. We've talked about like the what specifically in fruit are helpful to our cells. I remember there's a time someone asked me, what type of food can you eat to help your cells? And so an example is fruit, because many types of fruit contain these antioxidants that really help to deal with reactive oxygen species that are made in our cells as waste. So that's one like biological detail that I think can explain why fruit is great. So we talked about fruit and fruit juice. And then today we're going to talk about the what and why of epilepsy. Next week we're going to talk about, so someone asked about hermaphrodites. And so the term that is currently accepted is differentiation of sexual development, because the word hermaphrodite is actually an offensive slur. We'll talk about the history of that word. Where did that word come from? Why is it offensive? But for now, the way that doctors talk about, diseases of sex development, or disorders or situations of, sex development, or people with multiple like sex organs and variations of like gender, all these things, the way they talk about that topic, they call it differentiation of sexual development. So when you see that topic, for you, if you are the one who asked about hermaphrodite, please, that word is not that word is offensive, so we're not going to use that word. So please show up for the lesson, and it's going to be titled differentiation of sexual development. That's the lesson that's to address that question. And then we're going to close out with a hello John, thank you for being here. And so then we're going to close out our lesson with a conversation about cerebral palsy. So hope sijachelewa. No, you're fine. You're right on time. What we are doing right now is we are reviewing what the topics that we have discussed this year. And we are just running through our 2024 in review. So these are the topics that we have talked about. If you are someone who is interested in any one topic, please feel free to look at the YouTube page or look through this Facebook page, or just ask me for the link and I'll find you the link for the conversation. If you have any questions about any of these topics, please don't hesitate to leave a comment under the video, or send me an email, send me a message, and we will provide clarity. We have not released our 2025 list yet. That is still in development. We are still trying to think about what the show should be in 2025. That is still a work in progress. But for now, this is what we've done. Oh, yeah. Grace Wamboi, hi. Yeah. So GMO is top of the list. It's top of the list. What we did is that for the GMO lesson, it was happening around the time people were asking about anger. So we decided to talk about anger instead of GMOs. That's why we switched it. But it's going to be top of the list. GMO Aki was much interested. Yes, you're exactly right. We will put that on the top of our priority for 2025, and we will not forget it. We will. In fact, I'm going to write it down. We will not forget that item. So GMO, it'll show up in 2025. Okay, so I think that was the extent of our introduction. We wanted to just make sure that you guys remember, please remember to come for tea, osoro, coffee, porridge, all that on the 18th of December 18th. The aim of it is to talk about the channel, talk about what we want to do in 2025, hear from you what you guys want us to do in 2025. We want to appreciate you guys. We thank you so much for being here, and we just want to hang out with you guys. So it's literally just going to be 1 hour of hanging out with us. That's what that is. So we hope to see you guys there. Why my earring fell? That's okay. We'll just continue. So we hope that to see you guys there. And this is our topic in review. Hi, Jimmy. Hello, thank you for being here. So this is our topic in review, and so now we start. Now, Pia, I was happy to learn about alcohol, sasa ni others, bangi, cigarettes, or drugs. Yes, so that will be our top topic also. So you guys, I have started a list of topics for 2025. I will add Grace's comment about GMO, and then I will remember to add Jimmy's comment about bangi, cigarettes, and drugs. And then Jimmy anawakumbusha tafadhali mushare. So guys, one thing that people ask us is how can we help you guys? How can we pay you guys? So we are not asking for any payment ever. In fact, if anyone ever asks you for money on our behalf, that's not us. What we do ask you guys to do is to please share our content. We really appreciate it when you share, because that's how you can help us. That's how you can help our platform. So tafadhalini, please share this content. Please tell your friends to leave questions, comments. And honestly, if you guys disagree with something that we say, don't hesitate to write that also, because we are here to all learn. And sometimes we might miss something, or we might say something that strikes you wrong. Please don't hesitate. Tell us what you think, because again, all of us are here to learn and to grow and to make a space where people can learn. So okay, so having said that, I think that is all the housekeeping. We're going to start with today's lesson. So what is epilepsy? So again, remember the purpose of this channel and the purpose of these lessons. We answer the what and the why. So epilepsy is a disease. It's not an infectious disease, so you can't infect someone else with it. And it affects the brain, and it affects people of all ages, all stages. Around 50 million people, according to the WHO, deal with this disease. So this makes it one of the most common neurological diseases around the world. Nearly 80% of the people that deal with epilepsy live in low to middle income countries. You can live with this disease as long as it's well treated. And so the point here says that it's estimated that up to 70% of the people who live with it can live a seizure-free life if the disease is properly diagnosed and treated. There is a risk of premature death in people with epilepsy. It's up to 3 times higher than compared to the general population. And importantly, 3/4 of people that are living with epilepsy don't actually get the treatment that they need. So, Derojina watching, hello, thank you for being here. So it says here that 3/4 of people who have epilepsy don't actually get the treatment that they need. So is epilepsy incurable? So the thing with epilepsy is that if it's well managed, it'll be okay. So that's actually what one of the points here says. It says here that if it's properly diagnosed, hopefully, and if it's properly managed, you'll be okay. Or you can live with it just fine. So is it incurable? There's no specific cure, but there's a way to manage it that makes it that makes it possible for you to live with it. Sure, nimefika. Hope sijachelewa. Hi Joyce. No, you're not late. You're right on time to start. And then juu hii ugonjwa, if huna mtu ako karibu, most of them die. Okay, yes, that's true. If the disease is not managed well, then yes, you're very likely to be in trouble. So you see one of these points here, it says 3/4 of people with epilepsy living in low income countries do not get the treatment that they need. So yeah, you're exactly right. You ugonjwa, if someone is not with you, or if you don't have the right support, yeah, you will die. And in many parts of the world, people with epilepsy and their families suffer from stigma and discrimination. And honestly, that's another reason why we try really hard to provide information so that people can destigmatize this whole topic. Because to be sick is not stigmatizing, right? Like that, being sick, sickness, disease, that is part of the human condition. If you're a human being, you're made of cells, you're made of organs, and sometimes those organs fail, sometimes you have a problem, right? And that is part of being human. And so one of the goals of us showing up here and doing these lessons is we want to kind of destigmatize some of these topics by providing the information so that people can be able to deal with some of these issues with facts, and people can be able to remember that diseases are simply part of being human. Ni cells who are affected or which bacteria who are in a later epilepsy. So we will talk about that in the next slide. So let's see. Okay, so Deno, to answer your question. So there are so many different causes of epilepsy. So I think this table does a really or this list does an excellent job to tell us like what are some of the causes. So number one, so if you remember when we said what is epilepsy, this is a disorder where nerve cell activity in the brain is disturbed. So nerve cells in the brain, the cells that make up the brain, the way they work is that they send signals. So every time that we are doing a bodily function or any time that they are communicating with each other, they do this via signals. And some of those signals are electrical signals. So that's why you have this picture of these electrical signals. There is a situation or a circumstance in which this communication is disrupted, and it can now cause these seizures. So if you ever asked, what is a seizure is a disruption in the communication. Joyce, ni ugonjwa hatari sana. Ugonjwa ni wa familia pia au? Yes, it can be passed along from person to person. That's a lie. Sorry, it's not infectious, so it doesn't go from person to person, but I mean within family members. It can be inherited. So yes, it can be passed along in a family. So if we go back, what is epilepsy? A disorder in which nerve cells are the nerve cell activity, meaning the communication between the nerve cells in our brain, they are disturbed, and that causes the seizures. So then now the second part of our lesson, why? What causes it and why? Number one, there can be a structural problem, meaning something about your brain is different, something about the structure, meaning the way that the neurons are organized, the way that they are arranged. That might have some type of structural problem, and that might lead to this miscommunication, leading to seizures. Reason number two might be a genetic reason. So Joyce, this is to answer your question directly. Sometimes there might be a genetic cause for this disorder. So what does this mean? This means that, as we know, genes are passed from our parents to the siblings. Parents to the children. Wow, today I have many word problems. So we know that these genetic disorders are passed from parent to child. So that means that if a parent has an error maybe in the instructions that make certain nerve cells or certain parts of the nerve cell, then they can pass along this disease to their children. Meaning if kuna more chemicals or less chemicals than normal in a letter here, please. So that's point number 4. So we will get to that point, Hannah, 1 second. Okay, so the third reason is infectious, meaning, so now this goes to Deno's point, which bacteria can inhalate epilepsy. So there are certain bacterial diseases or certain bacterial infections that can lead to a disruption of your brain cells, which means that they won't work, they might have a problem communicating with each other. And in that way, you find yourself with an epileptic situation. So this is a situation where your brain has been impacted by a disease, then that disruption leads to an error in communication, and that error in communication now gives you the seizures. And epilepsy, I believe, is diagnosed if you have more than one seizure, I think in like a 24-hour time point. And so I think if you have a, sorry, that's an ambulance. So if you have had an infection that has led to a disruption of your brain cells, or a disruption in the part of the brain cell that does a certain type of communication, and if you have so many seizures that you have more than one in a 24-hour time point, then you can find yourself diagnosed with epilepsy. Another reason, so now this is Hannah's point, another reason is a metabolic reason. So this means that there's a chemical component in your brain that is either increased or decreased. And this means that it might come from a bodily process, like there are certain chemicals that can be increased or decreased in your body, and also in development. So this is if you are when you are in utero, so in your mother's uterus, when you're growing in your mother's womb, the biology and the chemical environment of that space is really, really important. And sometimes you might have an exposure to certain chemicals, certain hormones, certain things that might change the development of the brain. And now that can lead to this misfiring or this disruption of signal. So when we say metabolic, we are meaning any chemical component that has either increased or decreased, or that's a typo. A chemical component that is either increased or decreased that's related to a chemical process in the body. And then the second to last example is an immune reason. So your body might be responding to an invader in your environment, or you might be needing a certain type of immune support, and maybe you might have a hyperactive immune response that maybe leads to disruption of some of these cells, and then you can have a misfiring of these signals. So long story short, this disease is caused anytime the cells in your brain are misfunctional. So whatever cause can lead to misfunction or dysfunction or miscommunication can lead now to this type of disease. And then, of course, the last reason is unknown, because I've given you such a vague statement. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, there are so many other ways that you can injure your brain, maybe, and do those cause epilepsy? The answer is maybe, because there are just so many other unknown reasons why. So long story short, this disease has many, many causes, some of which I've talked about here, some of which I have not discussed. But the outcome of all of these disruptions, if that outcome is a disorder in nerve cell activity, meaning your brain cells are misfiring, meaning that the way that they communicate with parts of your body and your legs, your arms, any type of communication, whenever that communication is disrupted and there's more communication than there should be, and if that happens multiple times in a certain time point, I can double check this, but I believe if it's like more than 1 in 24 hours, then you end up with this disease. So I hope I've answered those questions, and I hope that I have provided a clear explanation. Please let me know if you have any more questions. Logged in as always. Hi, Wangeshi. Thank you for being here. So I hope that has answered the question, the audience question. So the audience question is, what is epilepsy? And I think we have answered the what and the why. So I think with that, our show is finished. And I am going to give a few seconds for some questions. If you guys have any follow-up questions. So that means it affects brains mostly. So yeah, so this disease is a disease of the brain, and specifically of the function of the brain cells. This affects, so when we think about affect, it affects the brain, meaning that's where the problem is, but it can affect other parts of our body, right? Because like if the communication is maybe to our arm, like if our brain cells are telling, well, if our brain cell is telling our arm to do something, but the communication isn't happening, that can impact now our arm. So it impacts the brain, yes, but it can affect the whole body. So yeah, I hope that all the questions were sufficiently answered, and I hope you guys will join us, I believe, on Tuesday. I think Tuesday might be Kiswahili. Thursday is definitely Kikuyu. I hope that you guys join us if you would like to hear about this lesson in both of those languages. I remind you again that our hangout Christmas party is on the 18th, and I guess I will see you guys at some point next week. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for showing up. Please leave any questions and ask for clarification if I said anything incorrectly or if I said something that didn't quite make sense. Please let me know. And I guess I will see you guys later. I hope you have a good evening and a great rest of the weekend. Bye.
Mugi ni mutare leu tabarĩra ya taũkĩrwo nĩrĩkĩtie gũkinya haku nja rĩu tũnyamũ twĩ muoyo nĩũkĩte nĩ ta andũ akwe ũtaũkĩrwo makĩria ũhoro wĩgiĩ mĩrimũ therũ na ciũmbe nini iria itonekaga na maitho nĩcio cells and microbes na rũthiomi rwa Gĩkũyũ ũtaũkwo na njĩra nyandandũku nyitanagĩra na mũtaramu Grace Gĩbũi oro mũthenya wa Saturday agĩgũtirithia kũmenya morutani maingĩ megiĩ therũ mĩrimũ na njĩra ndikĩru kũhoro makĩria kana kĩũria wĩna kĩo no ũtwarĩrie kũhetũkĩra kũrĩa kwa Ũgĩ Media Facebook page ona kana Facebook page ya tũnyamũ twĩ muoyo ndũkahatũkwo ũkothome makĩria no taũkĩrwo kũna.